Greetings, everyone. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and welcome to another COVID-19 call. This is my daily global conversation with interesting, important, influential, everyday people around the world as we talk about what's happening right now with the COVID-19 crisis. This is day 12 of the lockdown in New York, but we know that it's been much longer in other places. Today, we have a special edition where we're talking all about what's happening in Italy. Italy is one of my favorite countries in the world, and I've had the opportunity and honor of having multiple speaking tours of Italy, of having gone on multiple vacations. Sometimes they were combined. And I first went there when I was a little kid living in Moscow. And so I've always felt a love for Italy. And what's happening there now is so sad and breaks our hearts. And we want to talk to people who are living in Italy right now. And we would love to take your comments and questions. Tell us where you're watching from right now. Tell us what you're feeling. And we will bring those questions to our friends who are living in Italy. We have guests from Rome and Milan, and we will have others as well, also guests from Torino. So please do join us. Diana is watching from San Francisco. I want to give a special shout out to Diana. She's part of the team at the San Mateo County Health System, and they're doing an incredible job. As you know, the San Francisco Bay Area was the first in the country to have this shelter at home policy. And so we're so grateful that Diana can say hello and watch us. I'm sure if she has a moment to add any questions or comments, she will, but she's super busy, as is her team. This is Jonathan's watching from the East Village. Jonathan, thank you for being here. We also have Jamie Shum, who's joining us from Dutchess County in just further up the Hudson River from New York. We have Alex watching on Twitter. We're live right now on Twitter at Sree. And those are my guests. We'll introduce them to you to them in a minute. But we'll also we're live on Twitter at Sree, on YouTube SreeNet. I hope you subscribe so you can get my alerts. We're also on Facebook. We're on multiple platforms, and we want this conversation to go as wide as possible. So please tag your friends. Please hit share. Anybody who would benefit from this conversation, just tag them or hit share right now on any of the platforms that you're in. I should say that my name is Sree Sreenivasan, and I am a social media consultant and strategist in New York. I am also the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation and Audience Engagement at Stony Brook School of Journalism. And when you have a title like that, you've got to try to do something with the extra time that you have. And this is my attempt. And I know there are so many interesting, worthy projects and initiatives that people have started as a result of this lockdown. And we want to come to as many of those conversations as possible. We're speaking on Tuesday at noon Eastern. My next session is on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to talk about helping small businesses because it's so important that we help small businesses. Yesterday, we talked about workers. Before that, we talked about staying positive. Before that, we've talked about tech help. All of that you can find in my archives on YouTube. So please do look for it. So let me see who else is here with us. Diane is watching from Margate. Will Sutton is watching from New Orleans. And Tim is watching from, Sonali's watching from DC, as you can see. Marilyn's watching from Staten Island. So grateful to have all of you here. Let's see, this pandemic will help stop climate change, says somebody. We will see if that turns out to be true. Valerie is watching, and she says she's 42% Italian. That's very specific, and she's an ancestral travel expert. Raj Singh is watching from India, where they have just announced a 21-day lockdown, and much stricter than many other places. You need a curfew pass to go outside and do your shopping and everything else. So we're going to hear from lots of people. Joe's watching from Georgia. Thank you so much, everybody. Please tag your friends. Please hit share so more people can join us. Susanna's watching from Mexico. Also share your Instagram and your Twitter handle so that more people can join us. Now let me show you who our guests are so far. We're going to have more people. I see Diana is here. Diana Lee. Diana, please wave. Diana is a professor at the John Cabot University in Rome. And the last time I saw her was in Rome last year. It was great to be there with her. And now look at what's happening. And then we also have with us Dr. Daniela Cirillo, who is a doctor in Milan. And she's been working on so many issues around this, and we will want to hear her thoughts. We also have Kenny is watching from St. Petersburg, Florida. And my wife Rupa says hi to Diana. So Diana, we're connecting, and this is really great. Gary's watching from ATX. I guess that's Austin, Texas. And you know that a lot of us would have been in Austin just last week for South by Southwest, which was, of course, canceled. So please keep hitting share. Please keep connecting, and we want more people to join us. So let's go right to Daniela. Dr. Cirillo has asked me to call her Daniela, so I'm going to do that. And just tell us where you are, what's happening right now, and then later on we'll come to lessons from Italy that we can all benefit from. So ciao, Daniela. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sree. I am out of Milano, very close to the epicenter of the epidemic. I work at the San Raffaele Scientific Institute. I'm a clinical microbiologist. My specialty is tuberculosis. I work very much with the WHO. In fact, I was just out from a call to discuss how can the tuberculosis network help in testing for the COVID-19. I am directing a WHO collaborating center at the San Raffaele. I used to travel a lot in all countries. Part of my job is really traveling from one country to the other, not only for meeting, but for supervision, for teaching, for training of other people. Now I've been grounded at home. My last meeting was at WHO Geneva on February 22nd. That day was the first day we announced the first cases, and I was still going to Linate with some misfeeling. So should I go? I'm coming from Milano. I'm going to meet people from all over the world, but it was an important meeting. I remember this airport almost empty. You know, on a Monday morning, Linate so empty. It was very, very strange. I arrived in Geneva. I met all these old friends at the WHO. Everybody was hugging and kissing me. I mean, I had this feeling, you know, saying, probably you shouldn't do that. And that was probably the last time I was hugging someone, touching someone. Because since then, we are now, you know, just waving, saying I from 1.5 meters. We are grounded. We keep in the lab what is the activities that need to be done, that are instrumental for the support to the hospital. Research is only carried for the experiments that cannot stop. And the research for COVID-19 is the research that we can do. The rest of the hospital has been reconverted to the COVID-19 diagnosis and care. And consider that I'm working in a private hospital in Lombardia. And this is the main private hospital within a group of private hospitals. And altogether, only in our Gruppo San Donato, we are caring for more than 1,300 COVID patients. So the situation is really progressing very, very fast. And Lombardia was the epicenter of the epidemic. We could never imagine anything like that, and I will give you more details later on.
Thank you, Daniela. If you've just joined us, Daniela Cirello is a doctor who is out in Milan joining us. We also have Clara Martinez Turco, who's just joined us. She's a journalist living in Turin. And we also have Diana Lee, a journalist and professor at John Cabot University in Rome. And these folks are telling us about what's life like in Italy at the moment. I'm going to go to Clara now. Clara was with me on my very first show, and then we did a separate show on life in Europe. It seemed like a lifetime ago, but that was just a week ago, Clara. What is the situation right now in Turin?
So we have new measures as of yesterday, and now we're talking about new measures probably by tonight. There is less people in the street, but still not enough. I'm in the city center. I really haven't left my house in almost a week. Tomorrow is our grocery shopping day, so I will go out and see what is actually going on towards the main market side in the city, which is a couple of blocks from where I live. There is a lot of discussions going on about what could happen if measures can strengthen. Even within companies, there is a lot of talk about what could happen, what this means for business, for the people. A lot of companies have started to either go into cassa integrazione, which is the case of a lot of people I know. They have started to cut back the days that they work for 80% of the pay because the government gives a subsidy. And again, it's an ever-changing thing from hour to hour. So what was said yesterday might be changed today. So again, we're trying to do the best that we can.
I can understand that. Thank you so much. We're Ciao from Florida, says Rosa Napolitano. So she, I presume, has a connection to Italy. We're getting comments from all over the world. Rituraj is watching from India. Zeddy is watching from downtown. She says she'll forward to friends in Turin. Everyone, please do that right now. Tag your friends, whether they're in Italy or outside, so that they can be part of this conversation and learn from our guests. I also want to say hello to Diana Lee, who's a dear friend and New Yorker who now lives in Rome. She's a professor at John Cabot University. Diana, what is happening there? Tell us. And you have connections to two of the biggest epicenters of the crisis at the moment, Italy and New York City.
Yeah, I think having that connection between New York and Rome, America and Italy, and people who work and study in both places is exactly how I was going to introduce myself, in fact. So I currently teach at an American university, John Cabot University in Rome. I teach multimedia storytelling for businesses in strategic communications. And in that context, I teach Italian students who are going for a 4-year degree from an American accredited university. But I'm also teaching a number of American students who had been here for study abroad. Now, they have returned, of course, and so, well, one, of course, it's a big challenge, as we all know, to continue work and study and to suddenly ramp up to remote learning for university and other students, especially across different countries. But more interestingly, it's been both heartening and very sensitive for me to talk to young people, to students from literally both parts of the divide. I also, as Sree knows, I'm a former journalist with close to 20 years at ABC News. And I think I saw somebody, a former ABCer, log in, so that's great, Joe. And in that vein, while I'm living here, I'm part of a group of journalists in Rome who are both Italian and American, Americans for both Italian and American outlets. And we have a group, we call ourselves the Geckos, who have a group chat every day, and we also do social things as much as one can online, because as you've all heard, that's so crucial. In fact, tonight we're playing pub quiz. But the point is, it's interesting talking multiple times a day to journalists who were working both sides of the pond also. And then finally, I guess I just want to say that I feel like I'm sort of a, like all the panelists today are, an expert on lockdown. And, you know, since we're just a little bit ahead of people in America, I've been talking every day to people there, by families on the West Coast, of course, people like Sree, former colleagues and friends on the East Coast, about what to expect. And, you know, it's, I mean, I think, I don't know if I'd love to know what the other two think too, but it's just it's the waking up every day, not only the ever escalating numbers and the stress of 6 p.m. Italy time when those come out every day, but it's the changes, you know, here, it was 15 days ago, I believe, that we had the first nationwide bars and restaurants closing. But then just 2 days later, which nobody expected that soon, 13 days ago, what we call the fuller lockdown. And that was, you know, it's the day-to-day shocks. It's that. And then that the form you have to fill out here every time you walk out the front door has changed, and you'd better have the right one. And then finding out that you can't walk more than 300 meters from your front door with your dog. And then finding out that Amazon is limiting deliveries. Some of those sound silly, but it's just the constant thing. And the thing I say to people in America is it changes and escalates really quickly, and you just have to be prepared.
Thank you, Diana. We have a request from Prasad asking for statistics. So I'll see if Daniela, our doctor, has some statistics at hand that she can share. These are such grim numbers. We also want to emphasize that Italy, you know, we keep talking about flattening the curve, but Italy has now had more deaths than China. And we know the size difference between the two countries. So it's so upsetting. Please, go ahead.
Exactly. So I would take the statistics right now with a little bit of caution. So if we talk about the number of cases in Italy, we are probably over 50,000. The number of cases in Italy are right now, up to date, the number of people with positive swab. So those people have been tested. What we are doing now is a strategy to test the people that are sick or are contacts of someone that has been sick or admitted in the hospital. But this is not done at the same rate in all the country. So when we are talking about the number of cases, we are talking mostly about the number of cases that are symptomatic and admitted somehow in the hospital or reported. Out of the people that are reported, about 50% is in the hospital, 50% is at home. If we are talking about the number of people in ICUs, we have more than 3,000 people in the ICUs. And this is what is jeopardizing the system. So what is the limiting factor? The very scary factor is the fact that if you get sick in Lombardia today, you may not have a bed available in the ICU if you need it. But since yesterday, the officials are reporting what all the doctors know. And this is the fact that probably for each reported person, there is almost 6 to 10 cases that are not reported. So the number is much, much higher. So when we are talking about our 600 deaths per day that have been reported, that made the number of deaths very, very high, it looks like the disease in Italy has a mortality that is almost 4 times higher than the mortality in many other countries. What we are reporting the mortality on a denominator that is probably much lower than what it should be. The other issue here is the age of the population. We do have a relatively old population in Italy, with the mean age that is well over 60. So, and the people where we have the highest mortality are the people that are over 80. 80 and older are the population that is suffering the most. We also do some demographic situation that is probably different from even other European countries. We have young people, but not even up to 30 or 35 or 40 that are still living very close to their parents, so they may have transmitted the infection. And we do have quite a large number of elderly that are living with the family or are cared by the support people or family member, and so they could have been infected by them. So what our numbers show that is quite interesting is the fact that men get seriously sick more than women. We do have a ratio that is almost 2 to 1, almost across all the age categories, and that the young people are less affected. If young people are less affected, we still, very unfortunately, have some death among people. Today was reported someone that was 17 or very, very young, and this is really, really terrible. But apparently the majority of those people below 60 that are dying are either people that reach the hospital very, very late in their disease, or people that have some comorbidities. So in terms of, comparing our mortality rate right now is quite premature. In order to come up with real numbers, we will need to have a very well-established survey among the population that will be done probably by checking the antibody later on. Definitely, the situation in Lombardia went very, very quickly out of control. You need to consider one thing, is the health system of the Lombardia is a very strong one. So we must say that is unfortunate for us, but on the other side, for the rest of the country, it may be better that this happened in Lombardia in terms of epidemic, because if that happened in the south, probably the availability of beds in the ICU would have been much, much less.
Thank you. Sorry, Daniela, I just want to introduce the other folks. Thank you for sharing all that information. You're saying, despite everything, that it was, or if it had been somewhere else, it could have been worse. So that's even hard to digest sitting here. Let me just welcome everybody. We have about another 40 minutes or so of this amazing conversation with our friends in Italy. You're seeing people on the screen right now who are living in Rome, Milan, Turin, and we're talking about what's happening in Italy right now. Please share on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm on all those platforms live right now. I'm using a tool that allows us to do that called StreamYard. If anybody wants to learn how to do that, they can contact me. This is one of the things that we're trying to do, is to connect the world. And this allows us to bring together people very easily. So we're on these multiple platforms. Let me tell you who everyone is. Diana, please wave. Now that we're so many folks, we need to be clear. Diana is a journalist, an American journalist, a New Yorker living in Rome. She teaches at John Cabot University, an American university in Rome. Thank you, Diana. We're also joined by Daniela Cirillo, who is a doctor physician specialist in tuberculosis. So she knows about infectious disease, and she is based in Milan. We're also joined by Anna Macera. Anna, please wave. Anna is a dear friend and journalist based in Turin. She is the public editor of La Stampa and also is involved in a wonderful journalism program that I had the opportunity to visit. So hi, Anna, we'll come to you in a second. And Gianni Riotta is here. Gianni is my brother from another mother, from my Italian mother. He is not too far from here in New York City, Italian-American journalist, teaches at Princeton and runs a journalism program at Lewis University in Rome. And Clara, my former student, lives in Turin, and she is a journalist based in Turin. So thank you all for being here. I'm so grateful to all of you. Let's go to Anna. Anna, please tell us what is happening in Torino and how you're doing.
Hi everybody. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, good.
And you can speak up a little bit. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, today I'm very emotional because my niece just came back from the United States, from the university that she's going to, and it was a huge commotion for our family because we were apart for so long, and we were afraid for her trip. You know, it was a difficult trip, and she was in a very jammed plane from Cedar Falls to Chicago to New York to Rome, and Rome to Torino. It took about 30 hours to get here, and so she arrived with a mask on her face, and so it was a huge commotion for all of us. But she's safe and sound at home now and quarantining as everybody else is. In terms of work, things are really tough here because everybody's at home, and as far as the newsroom is concerned, very few people are allowed to go to the newsroom. Everybody else is from home from a distance. I think this is the opportunity, which is kind of a terrible thing to say, but it's an opportunity to learn how to work, you know, in a smart mode, which is, you know, smart working is something that nobody was very used to in Italy, and this is forcing everybody to quickly learn and find solutions, and we're doing it. And I think it's very brave and very. This whole experiment for the newsrooms in Italy is very important, and it might leave some lessons to be learned for all of us. And we're doing the same thing in the university. I'm sure Gianni already told you, or he will tell you about it also. All the journalism schools in Italy went on, you know, in a distance learning mode. So we're all doing this also with the students. We're teaching online. We're using other platforms. We're using WebEx for the lessons. And obviously, we're using the same platforms we used before in terms of social media. We use the Slack to work. So that keeps going on, and it's working. It's difficult. I can't say that it's not difficult. It's really difficult, but we're trying to keep the spirits up because we have to, and we're really hoping for a better situation. I mean, here right now, Turin is very silent. We can only hear sirens outdoors, the sirens of the ambulances going to the hospitals, and it's pretty scary and eerie. And so we have to keep our spirits up, and I think working is a good thing. It's a medicine for us.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad your niece is back home safe. Of course, going from New York to Italy and from all that journey must have been so harrowing for her. Alicia Murray says media in Michigan are still considered essential personnel, and so during the new stay-at-home order, she and another journalist are going to travel and work. So I'm going to bring in now Gianni Riotta, journalist here in New York, who's very much has the pulse of what's happening in Italy because he has colleagues and friends and family in Italy. Gianni, please fill us in. What is happening? How are you doing? And also, one of the questions many people are asking, Gianni, what went wrong? Why Italy? Why like this? And what could have been done different? And we'll ask the same question of our doctor in a minute. But if you can start us off, please, on that very important thoughts.
You know, Dr. Cirillo, that I salute, knows better than me. And actually, Sree and all the friends around here, nobody knows, because there are people that say that it's possible that there was a soccer match where the fans from Bergamo, 60, 50,000, a lot of people, and a huge, Bergamo is a pretty small city, all went to Milan for a match, a European Cup match, and that extraordinary crowd could have been the vessel of contagion. Nobody actually knows for sure. It's clear, and Dr. Walter Ricciardi, in a webinar for the Council on Italy and the United States, vouched for that. Is the Tsar in charge of the anti-epidemics efforts in Italy and former director of the National Institute of Health in Italy. Sociality and the way Italian spread their social life is quite different from Wuhan, from China, because the people, even old people, have a very, very, very crowded social life. Patient zero in China infected dozens of people. Patient zero in Italy, there was a very active young man playing soccer, going to discos, twice went to the hospital, infected hundreds of people. So it's a matter of how society works, is a matter of transportation, is a matter, of course, of a very, very old population, all this combined.
And do you see that things are, where are we on that flattening of the curve? I saw a headline today that was so striking. Italy saw hope in only 594 deaths reported yesterday. That number is so striking for the rest of us.
The curve is not flattening, but again, I don't want to, Dr. Cirillo knows more than me. The last few days have been better than a week ago, but still we have a long way to go. And I am afraid of what will happen in the South, because the epidemics has not really hit the South as yet. And the health system, my family in Italy, most of my family lives in the South, and the health system, the public system, is not as good in Sicily or Calabria as it is in Lombardia or Piedmont or the Venice area.
And that sounds really scary to hear about how there are different pockets of Italy where it's not as good as Lombardia, and that's where we had all this start. Let me bring in Clara. Clara, if you'll wave so people know there are now so many faces on here. Clara is a journalist who is based in Turin, and because her background is Italian and Venezuelan, she said in a previous conversation that she felt specifically different about shortages and things like that. Would you share that story again, please, Clara?
Yes, I said when this started, and Lombardy went on lockdown and the 14 provinces, I immediately thought of my days back in Venezuela. So to me, it was like, okay, go to the supermarket, get stuck. We don't know when this is going to hit, get the essentials. And actually 2 days later, the whole country went on lockdown. Having said that, I mean, the situation in Venezuela was you couldn't find things, so you would buy them when you did. So again, the stories of toilet paper are not strange for a Venezuelan. What I've noticed in Italy, it's every time I go to the supermarket, you actually find things. So even though we are supposed to stock ourselves and organize ourselves, like there is really no need to get everything, because business are still, I mean, business, when I say business, factories and in the food chain are still working. So there is no need to, get everything. That you do have to get organized. One of the things I noticed a couple of times I've gone is people going out to buy one yogurt or to buy one bread and ham to do a sandwich for lunch. And I try not to get upset, but I did, because I was like, can you buy a whole bunch of yogurts and take them to work or wherever you need to go? Do you really need to go to a supermarket to get one thing? Because again, by the time you enter and you leave, there's 10, 15 people waiting outside. I mean, if we all try to pitch in and get organized, these things won't happen. Again, you don't need to rush and get things. I mean, supermarkets are stocked. There have, at least in Turin, the ones that I've gone to, they have done a very nice job making sure they're stocked. So maybe you won't find the brand you want, but it's not like you won't find the thing that you're looking for.
You know, that sounds like Russia, the Soviet Union, where I lived as a kid in the 70s. If you saw a line, you just went and stood on it because you knew there's something you want to get. And to see that happening in a country like Italy is just so surprising and sad at this moment. Let me go to the doctor, Daniela Torello, who's with us from Milan. As you are hearing this conversation, what are you thinking, and how are you keeping positive and making sure that everyone is as safe as can be?
Well, the message is people need to understand that they need to stay home. Said so, my lab is still working because we do need to work and do some routine, because I'm the least useful person in the laboratory, in the sense that I can really revise all the patients' reports. I can do everything in remote. I leave my office so people get less crowded in the laboratories, and they can use my office. So I try to stay at home as much as possible. It is true, people don't need to go to the supermarket every day, but people use that as an excuse to just leave the house every day. And it's not easy. I mean, I do have quite a large apartment. I live outside of Milano. When I go out, I am in a park. I go to the supermarket, I walk through the park. There are people that are living, crowded in one room or few rooms. That's very, very hard. Said so, going to what Gianni was mentioning, Gianni, it's many years that we don't go. Probably since the time you were in Torino, right?
Exactly.
And I'm also from Torino. And what's the problem here? What happened? It happened, probably there was a nosocomial transmission as well. And patient 1 and patient 0 could have been patient 100. So the epidemic started much earlier than the end of February here. So we are talking, just looking at the virus and the virus evolution. Sure, more data are needed, more sequencing is needed, but probably we started much earlier. A lot of physicians now are reporting serious pneumonia in the hospital among elderly people. These people were in the hospital, not tested, and they could have transmitted. Once something enters in a hospital, especially a small hospital, it goes around and it goes back and forth. And this is what happened here in Lombardia. How it happened in Lombardia? People are coming out of different theories. One is bad luck. A very famous epidemiologist from Germany working in Heidelberg, she told me, well, it was bad luck. Could have happened somewhere else. The other thing is definitely Lombardia is very crowded. We do have a lot of activities, a lot of exchange with China. Young people, very social, going around the whole area, the whole metropolitan area around Milano is one big town where people live and go. Our airport is as crowded as we can imagine. I've been living in Torino many, many years. My family is there. Between Milano and Torino, there is a huge difference in terms of, activities. Everything is Milano is super pushed. We had the salts. So immediately after Christmas, we have a lot of people coming here for buying in the shops. Everything was on sale. So this is a major event. We get charters coming from outside. We did have Milano Fashion Week, first the man and then the woman. And we did have the Carnival in Venice that was stopped. But still we had some very, very large events. So that could have fueled the transmission that went totally unnoticed. In terms of life, we need to stay home. This is the message that people didn't get, and was a very, very bad communication. The communication on the virus was not a very good show. We have seen scientists fighting over on TV. You know, one was saying one thing, the other was saying another thing. That was not a good message. We had, you know, one day they shut down, then after a few days, Milano had to restart. So we had to reopen Milano. And then after 3 days, we closed all the restaurants and the shops, and now they are tightening up. The curve is not flattening, but it's 2 days that situation seems better. But the situation is better not because of the measures that were started two days ago. I mean, we are now looking at the numbers that were created 2 weeks ago. This is what we are looking. So in order to see what happened after this dramatic shutdown, we need to wait at least 10 days. We need to talk about that in 10 days to see if really this shutdown is giving us some results. Still, there are people around, but I mean, really, to have a complete shutdown like in China, that is going to be very, very difficult. That is going to be very, very problematic in all sense, I think.
Thank you, Daniela. I just want to ask Anna and Gianni and Clara, how much of this is because of the number of older people that are in Italy, partly because of the wonderful food and diet you have, people live longer, and the intergenerational connection is so deep, it seems to me, in Italy compared to many other European countries, even in America, compared to America, much closer to what you see in some Asian countries, including India, by the way. And I should tell you, my dad just tweeted at Sreeniv, Sreeniv, if any of you are following him. He says, let us welcome the lockdown for the sake of the people in India. They've just locked down for 21 straight days. We have no choice but to follow this method to overcome the Corona challenge. This was long overdue. So I will ask you also, any tips for Indians about to be going into lockdown? So first, Anna, to you, and then Gianni.
Well, you're asking for tips. My God. I mean, we have to remember this is really serious, and so we have to really keep the social distance, wash our hands. I can't stress this enough to the young people who don't really understand it very well. That you know, it's not. I mean, this is really serious. So we really have to keep a distance, which is really hard for our culture, and try to do things. I mean, in a very serious way, anyways, and try to be very responsible, and in the same time also be able to be light and not to let ourselves despair, because it's not going to be forever. But right now, it's like a drill. We have to keep ourselves like we are on a drill and keep reminding ourselves. For example, Italians touch their faces a lot. I mean, I noticed I'm having a really hard time not touching my face. So that's something that we have to practice and practice things like thinking about what we're doing all the time and not just doing it. And it's true that once you're at home for 2 weeks and you've been quarantined and that nothing happened and you know that you're okay and you're not going out, you can act normal again. But you have to remember, if you go out, be careful. We really have to be careful.
No, thank you. That was Anna Massera talking to us from Torino. Gianni, what about this idea around about the Italian cross-generational connection being so deep?
By all means true, Sree, because there are a lot of Italian kids that once they leave their dad's and mom's home, they go to live with grandma or grandpa because she has a spare bedroom, and she fixes them dinner. I have a nephew in Sicily living that life, and they visit them. They borrow the car. Where I live in Rome, there is a kid that every weekend shows up and brings some cake to Nonna, grandma, and then borrows her car, and then takes the car back and brings some more sweet. It's really a much different society. I see, for example, now that I teach the students in Rome, we use Zoom at Princeton, but we use WebEx at Lewis in Rome. And I see the houses of my students, and the ones that went back to live with their family, very often nonna or nonno, grandpa and grandma, are still living with them. So it's a different society. As far as tips goes, actually, I have a question, Sree, because when you travel in India, even urban India, you see that a lot of the activity is still outdoors. Cooking is very often outdoors. Washing clothes is pretty much outdoors. Socializing, a lot of markets. And I wonder, and I ask you, I wonder what will happen of that large segment, both rural and metropolitan in India, that is not in your apartment but outdoors.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And my father was saying that there's going to be a curfew pass that every Indian family has to get in order to go out. And the stores are going to continue to be open. At least that's the plan for now. This was just announced in a blanket announcement. So when it comes like that, I don't know how much preparation there was. Some of you know that the Indian government 4 years ago, on the same night as Donald Trump's election, that moment as the results were coming out, they announced demonetization. And in India was entirely, a lot of their larger currency notes went on, were immediately made invalid. And so India has had in the past this experience of major upheaval generated from the top down. So it'll be interesting to see how Indians do. We have lots of questions, and we only have about 10-15 minutes, so we're going to go quick questions and quick answers and comments. Alicia Marie says, stay positive and treat it like a drill, retaining ourselves and our cultures. I like that. She's quoting Anna. And Kalpana says, in India, people can't live without daily maid service. People of a certain class. I wonder what it means for people. My in-laws live alone, and they have a cook and a maid coming in daily. Their lives will be upended if they can't have help from these women. We've also seen that in New York, where there are some people who are used to having cleaning lady and other help, and they're having to work themselves. Peggy says she's having a conversation with Joe Arpaio in the sidebar. And Debbie says, as Italy is suffering, we can take heart in two Italian-American heroes in the U.S., Anthony Fauci and Governor Andrew Cuomo. That is so well put, Debbie. Thank you. My former neighbor now lives in D.C. Let's talk a little bit about Dr. Fauci. Is he being celebrated in Italy at this moment? Is Andrew Cuomo?
If I may chip, Sree, we don't celebrate an Italian American in Anthony Fauci, but we celebrate a Sicilian American because and actually a Western Sicilian friend, and he's a great guy. His family comes from Sciacca, a very small village in southern Sicily, and is really. Yeah, it has been celebrated. Actually, La Stampa, correct me, Anna, if I'm wrong. I think La Stampa has an interview with him either today or yesterday. And very interesting.
Sorry, I'm having a problem getting Anna's video up. Oh, there she is. Anna, yeah, do you have do you read the piece in La Stampa?
I'm having a problem hearing the questions.
Okay, no, I was asking Anna, La Stampa. La Stampa had an interview with Dr. Fauci today or yesterday? I guess it was today anyway. If Anna doesn't hear us.
Yeah, so she's having trouble, but we'll try to get her back. Diana, what is it like to be an American at the moment, where you have these two cities you love, Rome and New York, under this kind of immense cloud? Diana? Sorry, Diana, did you hear me?
Well, it's there's sort of a compound stress because, yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So, fortunately, as we've all been discussing, since I'm in Rome and not in the north, it has been better here. And yet, my parents and my brother, niece and nephew, all of the direct family I have, while Gianni's family is in Italy, mine are in Seattle, where, of course, everything first escalated in the nursing home in Kirkland, Washington. And my parents, who are in their 80s, are in a seniors residence in Seattle. So you can imagine sort of the stress coming right out of that. And then my home for most of my years in the US was in New York. And so, of course, I've been hearing from people both personally, businesses, so much stress. It's funny, for a long time, first here, and then, of course, worldwide, there was talk about prejudice against Asians and Asian Americans at this time. Well, interestingly, a very good friend of mine in New York said when things were first starting to escalate in New York, I would say, a full week ago, that people were not going to his Italian restaurant, and yet the restaurant of another ethnic background right across the street was doing just fine. And so I think it's just hearing all these things as they, there are all these hubs and outbreak centers that are building on each other. And so that's been stressful, but I think the good thing is that I've seen so much, and I'm sure everybody here has seen, cross-cultural and cross-border exchange of tips, as we've done today, but also support. I mean, thank goodness we can have talks like this. And I would just say, in terms of personal tips, as somebody who isn't crowded with a lot of other people in my home, but I live alone. If you live alone, it is a time to, even when you don't feel like it, really make yourself have that at least one a day audio telephone call, not just chatting, and ideally video. It makes such a difference. And so I've been heartened at the way we all connect with each other.
Oh, thank you, Diana. That's so well put. We're having a little trouble getting Anna back online, but when she comes, we'll join us. I know the doctor has to leave, so I'm just going to ask her a couple of questions, and then we'll let her go. Daniela, thank you for what you're doing. We also hear that so many of the people who have been most sick and had the most trouble are doctors themselves, healthcare workers, nurses, etc. How are you staying? How are your colleagues staying safe? And why such high numbers of doctors or medical personnel getting sick, including the gentleman in charge of the coronavirus has died?
Exactly.
Can you talk about that, please? And then I know we'll let you go.
I mean, that was that was part of the problem. We didn't have enough personal protective device. My niece in Torino she's a family doctor. She has received one mask at the end of February and nothing more. So you understand that if this is the situation, doctors cannot protect themselves. So this is one of the issues. The other thing that I want to mention is really a personal feeling. My father died on Christmas Day in the morning. It was very, very sad. I mean, losing someone on Christmas Day was very, very difficult. But I am glad that happened now, then, and it is not happening now. Because right now, people are dying alone without a funeral, and if they die in the hospital, nobody can even go there. So this is very sad. I think this is one of the worst feelings for old people. They are scared of the fact that if they die, they will be alone at this time. And this is very bad. And in order to prevent that, we really need to stay home. And people in other countries need to understand that is not something that is peculiar of Italy. This is happening everywhere. This is going to happen everywhere. And the lesson needed to be taken up very early in order to avoid a lot of death. So that is my final message. We need to protect our doctor also by staying at home, really, not overburden the system.
Thank you, Doctor. That's Daniela Torello. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing.
Ciao Daniela.
The very best.
Ciao, Gianni.
Gianni, I'd love to hear a little Italian. Could you both just speak to each other in Italian?
Ciao Daniela,
Gianni.
non fare strillare Iggy che se perché ti esponi troppo.
No, non lo faccio strillare. Ciao, saluta Maria.
I just I just broke Dr. Cirillo privacy because her husband, that is another very prominent and famous and dear friend doctor in Italy, yells at her because she doesn't take enough precaution and she puts her patients ahead of her, and so her husband shouts at her. So I told her, listen to him.
Ciao a tutti. Ciao.
Yeah, and Therese says grazie mille and thank you so much.
Grazie mille. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you. So we're going to just continue the conversation for just a few more minutes. There are so many comments coming in. Perez, grazie mille, she says. And Peggy says, I love Italy, which is so great. Arlene says, thank you all. And Peggy says, please stay safe. Grazie. It's just so nice to see everybody participating here. Will Sutton says, I love the video social connection idea. Play, rewind, play, share with Granny and Grandpa. And we have a comment and a message here from His Excellency, the Consul General of Italy to to New York City. I'm so glad to hear from him. He asked me to read this to all of you. He is in New York. He is in several meetings and asked me to share this. Please follow him and the entire consulate at Italy in NY, at Italy in NY. And you can also follow at Italy in USA. So that's the embassy in Washington and the consulate in New York. And our friend Francesco Gennardi says, thank you for being such an important bridge between Italy and New York. This unprecedented challenge we're both facing is definitely strengthening our bonds and our friendship. Italy and New York are more connected than ever. And thanks to you, Sree, and your generous initiative, we are stronger together. So thank you, Mr. Consul General, for sharing that, and good luck to your team and everybody who is watching right now. We have a few more minutes. If you're enjoying this conversation, please share it on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Ask a question. We now have 3 journalists with us. We had a doctor with us before. We're also hoping to get Anna Macera to join us. I see her. I'm going to bring her on screen so she can say hello. Anna, thank you for being here. So Diana will wave. She is in Rome. Clara will wave. She is in Clara is in Turin, and Anna is in Turin, and Gianni is in New York, but his heart is right now in Italy, as it always is. Let's get some more of the comments and questions coming here. Somebody on Facebook says, stay home, very important. And Gianni has also promised us that he will give us a poem or a piece of music.
I mail it to you, Sree, because I have trouble sharing content. And,
no, you can just speak. You can just maybe read a poem from one of the.
I send you a link that you can share so that people can listen to the music.
we'll do that. But
Okay.
let's get some more questions in. And my question for Clara is, how do we get through to the young people? It's fair to say you're the youngest in this group, but we have to really talk to even people much younger than you. Why are they not listening there? And also you watching things in Florida and other places. What is happening with young people, especially since they're seeing what is happening to their country?
I think there is a connection problem. And even Italians, we have this issue is when they started, and it started in China, it was so far away. We were so detached. So we couldn't relate to it. Then when it finally started here, and it started in, again, and the outbreak in Lombardy, even in Piedmont and in Turin, it was like, well, you know, that's another region. That doesn't have to do with us. And also the fact that, at least in Italy, most of the cases are elderly. So young people are like, well, that doesn't touch me. The truth is that because it doesn't happen to you, doesn't mean it doesn't affect you. Everyone knows elderly people, especially in Italy, that everyone has a nonna and a nonna, and you have neighbors who are elderly. So because you don't feel affected by it, it doesn't mean that it's not important. I mean, the fact that we have all been stressing stay at home, I cannot stress it enough. I mean, we all would like to go out. I have a toddler and he has been at home for 3 weeks. But again, it's important to stay at home.
Yeah. Is he bouncing?
Yes, my husband is. Well, he's just happy to have mom and dad at home, even though he doesn't understand why we disappeared in the middle of the day because we are working from home. So, and sometimes it's like, please go too. So he doesn't understand what is going on. And even if we try to explain it, it's a bit complicated. And we would like to go out. We really do. But we can't. I mean, one thing during social media weekend and was listening others what things have been doing in countries, and I was like, oh, it would have been great if we have did that, or oh, it would have been great to do that. But we got into a situation where it was already too late. So please stay at home and don't get to that point. I really cannot stress that enough.
I understand. Thank you. Alicia Marie says, for those grieving the loss of someone loved, how are funerals being handled and postponed? We heard a little bit about that from the doctor, but any of the others have a thought on that? Can answer that?
It's really, if I may, Sree, the daily L'Eco di Bergamo, that is a small daily in Bergamo, and is actually publishing hundreds and hundreds of obituaries, small paid obituaries by the families every day. And the editor of La Stampa, Maurizio Molinari, asked me, read all of them for days and then write a story explaining who these guys are, who this community is. And this was really heartbreaking because, you know, you really see the family, the structure, the group, the soccer teams, and all these people. Some of them were in the Italian army, and it's really heartbreaking. And the funerals, now all the you know, people cannot be cremated anymore because the ovens are completely overwhelmed, and so there was this very sad procession of military trucks that went south, moving caskets and moving bodies to be cremated in the south. And my daughter, that she's a journalist working in London at CNBC, the other day sent me a note saying that I put on the air this segment about the military trucks carrying the corpses down in Italy, and then I went by myself and I cried because it really was too heartbreaking to see all this. So it's really, and again, the tragedy is what Dr. Cirillo said, is that these old people go to the makeshift hospitals knowing that, contrary to any Italian century-old tradition, they will die alone without their family around, and that's really bad.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm so sorry to hear it. What I'm showing on the screen, folks, is a visualizer called covidvisualizer.com, which shows the statistics in each country as the days pass. And you can see United States is now up to 45,000 active cases, 582 dead. And if we compare that to China, you can see the China number is 4,000 active and 3,000 dead. And when we go to Italy, you'll see here, oops, sorry, I'm just trying to, there you go. Italy is 50,000 active and 6,000 dead. So China has been surpassed by Italy in these numbers, and it's just very, very shocking to see. We have many more comments and questions coming in. Let's just see here. First, I was told that pets are not affected, but now we hear pets are being impacted. What is happening in Italy with the pets of the owners who have passed away? How is that? Is there a whole operation around animals? Does anybody know?
Again, Sree, if you can see me, I get literally, dozens of links every day from all different social media for adoption of pets. And of course, very often the families take care of them. And there is, if I can go on a lighter note, police allows you to walk the dog, and so it's very often that your neighbors can ask you, please, can I borrow your dog because he doesn't have any, and so that he can go out without shopping, simply to take a walk. And so there are a lot of memes and jokes in Italy about this overexhausted dog that has now to walk 24 hours a day because everybody wants to take him out.
Yeah, I can see that could definitely happen that way. Again, if you're looking on the screen right now, we're looking at a visualizer called covidvisualizer.com that you can take a look at right now. Kalpana says, heartbreaking to hear of folks having to die alone. Is there a scarier thing in our lives than that? And especially in Indian culture, Italian culture, you live and you work together, and you're really, that's part of the experience of being Italian, being Indian. And we are getting so many comments. Kalpana says, my 26-year-old son in Brooklyn won't come home to California. I tried to entice him with promises that all his favorite foods, but he says he won't take me up on my offer. My husband and I would rather have him next to us now, but he says he would rather not fly at the time from New York to Canada, to California. And I want to ask Anna Macera, who is with us, your niece who flew, did she, going from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which the president is very proud is one of those places that doesn't have as many cases, to New York and then to Italy, was she worried about I'm sure she was, but was there a consideration of not coming home?
Yeah, we had a lot of discussions about that. It took a long time to come to the decision of coming home. For a long time, she just wanted to stay there, and she kept telling us it was better for her to stay there. She was hoping really that university wouldn't, go online and stop lessons, and then that happened. And then her semester abroad was canceled, and that was also bad news for her. And eventually all her friends went home and she was all alone at the university. So it didn't really make much sense for her to stay there anymore. Her job, she has a temp job at the university, and her job stopped because it was, that stopped too. So all of a sudden it was just expenses in America and being far away and all alone. So eventually she got convinced that it was better to come. But she was very worried about coming home and bringing maybe disease at home to her mother, because let's face it, we are considered old people now. We are, my sister is almost 60, I'm 60, and that's an age that is considered statistically a dangerous age. And so we have to face it. We have to be very careful. We have our immune systems compromised. We're not as young as, my niece is, and so she's in her 20s, and obviously she's stronger. So now they're quarantining. She just arrived, and I think they're going to take that very seriously. And it's all a new thing, and it's very difficult and scary. And they They don't know how it's going to work, but they're doing their best. I have a 93-year-old. I mean, tomorrow my aunt is going to be 93 years old. I mean, she was like a mother to us, and she lives alone because her husband died many years ago, and usually she has all of us going to visit her. Nobody can go visit her now, so she's all alone at home. She's totally cool about it, keeping her house clean because the cleaning lady can come. So and her son goes there every other day to bring her groceries, but with a mask. He's a doctor, so he knows how to deal with that kind of stuff. But I mean, she wears a mask too when he comes in. They don't even, they can't hug or anything. They have to stay at a distance. So it's all very dramatic. It's really like a war situation. But people are taking it seriously. I don't think people are being irresponsible about this. I think Italians are doing the right thing and they understood. I mean, the media in this respect has been really good about explaining how important this is. I mean, as much as we keep criticizing our media, I think it's really what people are looking for, to find information, to know what they have to do, and we're doing it. I mean, we're doing it in the newspapers, on the websites, on television, on the radio. It's everywhere. There's no excuse. Nobody can say I didn't know. I mean, we all know.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to everyone that we have just a few minutes left. I could go on forever. These are my friends, and I feel like I'm just hanging out and having a private FaceTime with everybody, but they need to get back to work. So I'm going to ask Gianni where he sent me the piece of music so I can play it.
Mail.
You emailed it to me, right?
No, but I actually, I realize what am I supposed to do, so I can do it, and I will do it right away. So this will be okay. Okay.
By the way, but while you prepare, Gianni, I just wanted to say to everybody that one of the problems is we feel we have so many ways of communicating, almost too many. So somebody will say, I called you, and I say, what platform? And I'm missing many messages, so I apologize for that. But Gianni has posted has sent us a YouTube video that I'm going to share in just a minute. But I'm going to let each of you give me some closing thoughts. Take a minute or two and just share your closing thoughts. Diana, I'll go to you. She is Diana J. Lee on Twitter. American journalist, American professor. She has a wonderful career in everything from the New York Times to Asia Society to the New York Public Library. And she worked for one of our heroes in journalism, Peter Jennings. She was his favorite producer, and they went through a lot together, as a lot of journalists did. We were so sad to lose Peter after in the years after 9/11, and stress had something to do with it, right, Diana? The story is that he started smoking those long hours during 9/11, and then he got sick after that. But Diana, anything you'd like to share with us while I find?
I don't think we're supposed to talk about that, Sree. I think officially Peter was not a smoker.
No, I didn't hear that from you. No, Diana, I didn't hear that from you. I heard that.
No, I know you did.
I told him, Diana. I told Sree. I take the blame.
I guess a few closing thoughts. One is, I've actually, in times of big news stories, Peter was, those of us who knew him, just a huge presence and persona. And of course, what all of us, his viewers, know him as is somebody who really led us, staying on the air hours and hours and hours and days through crises like 9/11. And I think what we've touched on in this discussion is that there is a real responsibility now. I mean, look, we have nothing else to do. Everybody is online. So for journalists to get the right information out and to reach the right people, and for people to share the right trusted information responsibly, could not be more crucial now, because all we're doing now is reading online and sharing. Similarly, I know many of us work with young people and students, and I think we've talked in this discussion about, maybe young people not realizing the threat of being carriers. And that's something, of course, we all have to think about. And I think that as people are engaged in remote learning, whether you are a student or an instructor or a parent of a student, I think, you know, there are fantastic ways. The courses I'm doing, we're having discussions through Slack chat and Zoom. And in these discussions, we should address some of this as well. Because, of course, as we all know, where young people are getting their news is different from where, as you said, we older people approaching 60 might think they are getting it. So I think having civic information conversations in all the online platforms that we're all spending time on now is critical. And then, you know, finally, I just want to say to both people in America and Italy and China, let's all support each other, as has been happening so well. And let's keep having discussions like this. Thank you, Sree.
Thank you, Diana. So well said. Joe says, I worked for ABC Net News for 15 years and loved Peter Jennings. Thank you, and we feel like I haven't thought of Peter, I should say, for a while, but when these crises happen, I always understand the power of television and looking for familiar faces. And now I see you and all my friends online, and I'm so grateful. Thank you, Diana. Clara, over to you. You've been a wonderful source of information for me personally these last few days. You've been on these calls multiple times. This is the third time you've been on this call. Thank you for being with us. You're in Turin now. What would you like to share and have people think about?
I would say let's try to make the best out of it. Again, it's the time, if we are not good at smart working, then we brush our skills and learn about it. Maybe we have time to do something that we wanted to do and we haven't had time, and so we're home finally and you can do something. I mean, it doesn't have to be bad into our homes. We can do something, we can connect with people. Yes, we cannot be close to people. That doesn't mean that we cannot talk to them, call them, take care of our own. I mean, I too have elderly family that I haven't seen in a month, and it breaks my heart. But at the same time, I try to call them, do something nice for people for a change. Maybe you have a neighbor that is elderly, offer to do shopping for them or something like that. I mean, you don't have to go into their home. You can knock on the door, leave something outside. So yes, it's a really hard time, but it doesn't mean that we cannot take something positive out of it. That will be my advice.
Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful thought. And Maggie said her friend's wedding in March in Miami was postponed. We talked a little bit about funerals. I presume that's also happening all over Italy with weddings, big birthday milestones. We heard about Anna's aunt, for example. So this is affecting us in so many ways that people cannot predict. Anna, let's go to you. And again, Clara, thank you. Follow her on Twitter. She's at Clara Martinez T on Twitter. And Clara, remind me which school at Columbia, which year of Columbia Journalism School you were? Clara?
2011 and 2010 for CIPA. So I went to both.
Nice. And in fact, we're all from Columbia Journalism School right now. When we're looking at the screen, we have Anna and Gianni, Clara, and me. We're all four from Columbia Journalism School. So Anna, we'll go to you. Your final thoughts for now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sree. This is wonderful. I'm in the kitchen right now, the kitchen that you came to when I
Yes.
Remember it?
Yes.
Because it's the only place really where I have a really good connection. Unfortunately, connections in Italian homes are not very good. And I wasn't able to call the technicians to come and fix it because, nobody can come. And so before the connection fell, and I'm sorry that I did not answer Gianni's question. I don't know what it was, but I hope he'll let me know what the question was, and maybe I can answer it.
Oh, so the question, so we were just asking about final thoughts, Anna.
Okay. So final thoughts is that basically are that, yes, I agree with everything that's been said. This is an opportunity also to do some good and also to reflect on how we can improve our future once this is over. And I think we can get good lessons out of this. I think we have to do our job better, and I think I'm trying to do it in my little space, in the little things that I do. And being public editor means for me answering the readers, and readers right now are writing a lot more than they used to because they are anxious and they're asking a lot of questions. They're reading a lot more the newspaper, and they're also, I think, appreciating it more than before. I noticed that the change in attitude from the readers. Before, they were very impatient and asking in an angry manner, in an aggressive way, or criticizing in an aggressive way when we made mistakes. As public editor, I have to correct the errors, and so it was very hard to communicate with the readers that were angry. Right now, readers are grateful that we communicate with them, and so when I answer their questions, or I answer and accept, and I apologize for the mistakes that we make, because of course, being under pressure, it can happen, working from home in hard conditions with less people and just more complicated. So the mistakes happen, and we correct the errors, but it's a complicated relationship with the readers. And I think we have a community that's more supportive, and I think we should hopefully try to keep this community once this situation is over, and try to embrace it, because we really need a community to stay alive as a newspaper. So I'm trying to do that.
Thank you, Anna. And in America, we are super worried about what's going to happen to newspapers. There's a lot of traffic coming in, but advertising is slowing down, especially at local news sites. So somebody has written a very important piece, Craig Silverman, saying this is almost Armageddon for local journalism in America. This is going to accelerate all the problems that the 2008 crisis showed us, what the .com crisis showed us. All of that is now going to get much worse. So we are holding good thoughts for all journalists. They're frontline workers right now, going out and getting stories, just like healthcare workers, delivery men and women. So we hold good thoughts for all of them. So thank you so much, Anna Massera. Please follow her on Twitter. She's at Anna Massera, ANNAMASERA. Thank you so much. You see everybody's Twitter handle. And thank you, Anna. And you can, I will just say thank you. We also had a message now that Diana is back. I just want to say this is the same way I felt about Peter, Ed Bradley, and Cronkite, Walter Cronkite. Didn't know them personally, but felt connected. And Peggy wrote back saying she feels the same way. And the funny part is he's in Durham, North Carolina. She's in Taiwan. They don't know each other, but we've now come together over this conversation, and that's really really special that this is happening. Thank you for being here. Alicia Marie says Sree smart people. She's been using that hashtag. I am humbled by that. I also want to thank Rose Horowitz, who's been tweeting up a storm every one of these days. And remember, all of this is archived on the platform you're watching. It is completely archived. Or you can go to my YouTube channel, Sreenet, SREENET, and you can look at all now 12 days. Tomorrow we're going to talk at 2 p.m. Eastern Time about all things around helping small businesses in America and elsewhere with some really smart people who are trying new things. So would love to have you for that. Before we leave, we're going to have Gianni share his final thoughts, and then I have a beautiful piece of music he has chosen. So he's going to explain that after his final thoughts, and I'm going to play it, and then he'll tell us what we're seeing. So go ahead, Gianni.
Two points, Sree. The first, thank you to you and to all the friends. And you were mentioning Taiwan and people living on the West Coast and Italy and New York. And former British Prime Minister Theresa May said of people like us that have different roots, said like people that have roots in different countries have roots nowhere. And I think that people like us that are gypsies and they're born somewhere, live somewhere else, have a lot of pain, a lot of stuff to endure these days. I mean, we are a global class just because we wanted to know the world and love the world. And so now we are stuck, and it's really tough for all of us. So I chose this from Verdi, Nabucco, and the conductor is the legendary Claudio Abbato. And this is the chorus of the Jewish people stranded far away from their home, and they chant because they long for their home. And the problem is that I dedicate it to you with the idea that your home is my home too, and wherever your home is my home too.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. So with that, I'm going to play this piece of music. Thank you all for watching. Please join me. Please send me feedback. We want to do this every day during this crisis. My email is sree@sree.net. My Twitter handle is @Sree. My Instagram is SreeNet. Please do join us, and please follow me on YouTube, because we are going to do a lot more of these live sessions. So now I'm going to play this. Thank you, everybody. Ciao, grazie. And let me play this and see how this goes. Gianni, can you say again what we're listening to, please?
Yes, this is the chorus from Verdi Nabucco. The conductor is the Claudio Abbado, and it's Jewish people stranded abroad in exile, longing for their homeland.
Thank you. And ciao, everybody. Thank you. I'll let this run for a few more minutes. Bye-bye. I know you have to get back to your day, so you can just leave. Thank you. Folks, you are listening to a piece of music chosen by Gianni Riotta, who was just our guest right now, and you can find it. It's if you search Verdi Nabucco va Pensiero. Abado Berliner is the wording that I see on the screen, and I hope that will help you find it. And if you have any questions, you can write to me. I'll help you find it as well. Sree@sree.net. That question came from Andrea Bloom. Thank you for asking, and thank you for being here. What beautiful comments. Renee says thank you. Alicia Marie says my home is your home now. Rose, who has Italian roots but lives in Florida, says thank you. Renee, thank you for being here. Terry says thank you for this. Diane, I've never talked about it, but Stefani, I presume, is Italian connection. Thank you for all you do to keep this community sane and insane. And thank you, we online. Really appreciate it. This was a beautiful way to end our conversation, and I'm so grateful to everybody. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to talk about and how you can help in the days ahead. We've already we've gotten yeses for these conversations from Matt Murray, the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal, as well as Richard Edelman, who runs Edelman Public Relations worldwide and has done so much important work around trust barometers and how to keep a sense of what is happening with brands and companies. I want to talk to him. He has said he'd join us. We're looking for guest ideas. If you know anyone who can join us, who has some kind of interesting expertise, background, etc., please let me know. We're going to do this every day. So please do join us. Thank you very much, everybody. Delighted to be here with all of you. Rao is watching from Poland. And this tool that I'm using is called, again, StreamYard, and it allows me to go onto 5 different networks at the same time, and that's why it's interesting. One of these days, we're going to do a show just on that. And before I leave you, I will bring up something I've been saying on every show. I know being on lockdown is hard. I know it's not easy with family. People who are complaining that they have too much family with them, talk to the people who have no family with them at the moment. To get a sense of who sees the green grass is greener on which side. But I will urge all of you to work on something. We all have either more time on our hands or less commuting, any of those things. There's a great opportunity to do something, work on something, some kind of digital project, and I'd be happy to help you, share my ideas, give you feedback. Please write to me. Several people have done this already. There's no easier time to make something, test it. People will forgive you if you make mistakes, if you fumble around, because nobody is going to complain at this moment. So there's a perfect time to try something. I urge you to do that. This is an example of that. I'm just trying something, but fortunately it has taken off and we have thousands of people watching every day that we do this, but it's only because of the community. So thank you all. I am so grateful. It was a chance for me to think about Italy for today and feel uplifted even in the times of great sadness. So thank you all, and we'll see you soon. I am very grateful to all of you. Goodbye, everyone.